welcome back to my channel. I'm Jen at KetosisMom. I promise I'm gonna keep today nice and short and sweet for everybody. I am gonna be going over my results from my previous week. I will also show you this week's injection. I'm still on the 7.5 milligram. However, that may or may not be changing. I'm waiting on my doctor to give me a final decision on that. You'll get a little more understanding of why that is in just a moment. We're going to go over some of the GLP-1s in the news as always, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, we are on my week 36 with Zepbound. I'm still on the 7.5 milligram. I also have an additional, I believe, 2 more injections at the 7.5 milligram. I discussed with everybody last week that I had gone back on my Linzess after being taken off of it for a different drug that I had a severe reaction to. The Linzess, after about a week, has started not working again. And so I've really been struggling the past week trying to kind of get back on track, both with my Viome and also in a good system with Linzess. I have had constipation for the past week that I've been trying to work through. I've not been able to really eat a whole lot just because I am in a lot of discomfort and a lot of pain. I just now, probably TMI, just now today finally got some of that to move. And so I am actually up in weight right now, which I think is absolutely insane. I know that it is coming up on a cycle week for me, which I usually am up during that time frame anyway. I also have my Cosentyx week that has not yet been taken. It's due on Friday, so just in a few more days. And then I also have had constipation. So I am up by 4 pounds right now. And I'm going to be honest with everyone. I think it is all just sitting in my gut right now, just chilling, not going anywhere, making me absolutely miserable. My Weight Watchers Clinic doctor did look at the weight that I've been logging over the past week. She did say that based on kind of how things are going, she wants to know, do I want to stay on the 7.5 milligram or do I want to go ahead and rotate to the 10? I told her I'm basically going to just defer to her guidance on this at this time because I was losing. Each week I have logged a loss. However, with this week logging this plus 4 pounds, that kind of negates that entire loss. I did ask her to kind of let me decide towards the end of the month so that I can see what my net gain or loss for the month of October is. That way I can make a little bit better and informed decision. So at this time, I don't know if my next refill will be the 10 milligram and we're going to go ahead and bump up, or if it's going to be the 7.5 milligram. I will say that I feel like I have not been eating hardly anything. It's very hard for me, even at this level, to get anything consumed. I have been having a lot of protein shakes, very, very smaller meals at a time. I've also been trying to up some of my fruit intake to also have coconut water on top of my water that I've been drinking in my wonderful Buc-ee's glow-in-the-dark Halloween cup right here. I'm trying to do all the things just to get my gut to move at this point, and that is my focus. And I feel like trying to make a decision on whether or not I want to move up to the 10 milligrams right now in this moment is not really what I want to be doing. I really just want to focus on getting my gut back where it needs to be after coming off of a medicine, trialing a medicine that was awful for me. And I had a severe allergic reaction with like lots of swelling and lots of pain with it as well. So that's where I'm at this week. I did do my injection earlier today. I'll show you all that as well. I did rotate back over to my side because seeing as when I injected directly into my abdomen this last week, I'm not really getting anything from that. I'm also having the severe constipation after injecting directly into my abdomen. So I just want to make sure that I don't need to go back out to one of my sweet spots in order to have the 7.5 work for me again. And I promised you guys today was going to be short, and I really did mean that. I am going to go into my GLP-1s in the news because there is some news this week that I know that there's going to be a lot of angry people about. Okay, so I'm quite often accused of being on here and being the I told you so lady. That's not going to change this week. If anybody has been looking in the news, you will see, and maybe Novo Nordisk has been watching my channel and getting some ideas on how to approach this, much like Eli Lilly. So Eli Lilly approached the compounders in a way of, hey, we're going to remove ourselves from the shortage list, and per your own guidelines that you are supposed to be following by your state regulators, you should no longer be compounding with us. They turned around, pitched a hissy fit, threw out a lawsuit. Someone at the FDA obviously has no backbone and decided, okay, we'll relook at this for you, instead of just sticking to the fact that there are laws, guidelines, and regulations in place, and everyone should have known what they were before they ever even started compounding this. This is very much a money-driven backing behind everything. Ultimately, the decision there is going to be based on who pays off who in the government and who pays off a judge and who pays off somebody at the FDA to try to make and sway a decision in their favor. So I think Novo Nordisk saw that happening, saw it coming, and so they went a different route. Personally, I think that their route is better because it is on safety and efficacy of the drug, how it is manufactured, how it is made, the complexity of the drug, and how it needs to be with certain active and inactive ingredients in order to work as it should. So when you're looking at a synthetic form of the peptide versus the manufactured, FDA regulated and approved form of the peptide, everyone, who, I'm just gonna be honest with you, has absolutely no idea. If any of them have a PhD or are a cellular, molecular, or genetic biologist or researcher, then I would love for you to step up. However, all of the just Joe Schmoes that are all over the internet saying that they're the same thing, they're not actually the same thing. So there is a 50-page document that has been submitted to the FDA in order for Novo Nordisk to basically stop compounders from not only compounding their drug if it no longer appears on the shortage list, but it would also stop them even if the semaglutide appeared on the shortage list again. Yes, there is a loophole, and they definitely found it. All they have to do is get the semaglutide in the versions that they make with their Rybelsus, with their Wegovy, and their Ozempic that has been FDA approved to be put over onto a different list. Now, in order to basically qualify to be on that list, you have to show that there is a major complexity issue or complexity and safety concern around the way that you're manufacturing something and the way that someone else is making it, such as the compounders. It is known as the DDC list, or the Demonstrable Difficulties for Compounding list. So they are basically submitting a 50-page document saying, we are going to demonstrate for you that the way that we produce this, the way that we manufacture this, is significantly different than the way that they are mixing up compounds and sending it out to the public. Additionally, we are also going to demonstrate for you that there are multiple impurities that we've been able to find through both the inactive and active ingredients along with this peptide on the ones that they are compounding. They also demonstrate the impurity profiles of all of these. So it goes through and shows you on what their findings are, which they paid a third party to do. They didn't do this themselves because they learned from their last legal battles that they needed to do that. The third party basically breaks down all of the different things that can happen within this semaglutide that's being used in compounds, which is a synthetic one, right? So you have your synthetic compound and you're mixing it with these other additives, or you're mixing it with other types of ingredients. So that would be like me saying, because I have an egg, okay, and they have another egg that's a different kind of egg. I have an ostrich egg, they have a chicken egg. I mix mine with milk and butter and salt and pepper and olive oil, and I'm going to fry that up and make an ostrich scrambled egg. They're going to add in heavy cream, some water, some margarine, some salt and pepper, and some additional vitamins so that they can market theirs as better because it's got more vitamins in it. They're not actually the same dish. In the end, they're not the same dish. They don't have the same genetic makeup. They don't have the same capabilities of what the active ingredients can then do based on what's been added to them. And so what's interesting about this 50-page document that I'm just kind of like really break it down for you guys, because I could get into, they go through their entire manufacturing process about how they have their Saccharomyces cerevisiae that they're combining with their recombinant DNA, that there's a manufacturing process where they're going to then purify this and fractionate it. There's a lot of things that most people are never going to understand what any of it means. Most people are also never going to be able to pronounce a lot of those words. The majority of America also has no idea what an amino acid chain looks like unless they've gone through multiple organic chemistries throughout college in the medical profession. And even then, I would bet dollars to donuts that most of your doctors who did have to go through that still can't identify for you differences. Or if you were to add in something like a sodium phosphate dihydrate, what would then happen to that chain and which parts of it break apart? It's a very complex process. And so they go through in this document how each one of their drugs are made, what it is actually combined with, how you have to balance the pH level, what you might have to add to those to do that, and how that combination of ingredients through a peptide that they have grown via a yeast and a recombinant DNA on their own, that is the peptide that has been approved by the FDA, how that peptide stays stable. Remember, I've talked multiple times about stability issues within compounds. There is no there's no one testing the vial that is sent out to you that says, yeah, there's nothing in this specific vial that is impure. There is nothing in this specific vial that can stay to this temperature for this amount of time. There's no sterility and stability studies that are done on each individual drug of vial that is sent out from a pharmacy. Nowhere. No one's even going to pay for that to be done. The most they're going to do is grab a random vial out of an entire batch that they've made. They're going to run a couple of endotoxin tests on it, which is not even a full profile of endotoxins and impurities that should be looked at, just to get it out the door as quickly as possible. So this 50-page document from Novo Nordisk is basically stating to the FDA, the way that we make our FDA-approved drugs, which you have specifically approved via like 300 pages of submission of our manufacturing process for each one of these. I think one of them was like 336 pages of what their actual manufacturing process is, what it entails, what each step does. And a lot of that, even for me, is blacked out. Yes, I would know what a lot of it is, but it's because I used to do this. So, I mean, I know I was the person who owned all of the API ingredient list. It's called BOM, bill of material, non-BOM, which is your non-bill of material, but it might still have direct product contacts somewhere along the way, and it doesn't actually appear over in the final product. And then you also have your consumable items. Every single thing that came into the building had to go through me. I knew what it was. I knew it went through change control. I knew it was approved to buy it. They could not put it in a system to buy it until all the quality checks on every single piece of ingredient that may be present in that drug, even if they don't use it that day, has been checked. Okay, so A lot of these ingredients I understand what it is, I understand what they do. Most people do not, okay? So when they go through each one of their drugs, they break down and say, we have studied this drug in combination with these different items. And it's a checklist, right, of these chemicals or these additives, right? And we know that it stays stable and it does what it is intended to do once it enters a human body with these specific ingredients. However, when you start adding in additional things, or even if you're just mixing it with water and alcohol, but you don't have the additional things that the manufacturer has, the peptide itself can act in a different way. It can morph, it can change, it can do something completely different in your body. That completely different thing could be cancer, could be liver failure, could be pancreatitis, those are the extreme things, right? It could also just be that, like, hey, it turns your skin red underneath the arm. They don't know, and no one knows, because there are no clinical trial studies on a compounded drug that is sent out. There are, again, no clinical trial studies, no tests whatsoever. And a lot of people are saying, well, you know what, I don't care. I'm just going to buy the peptides and I'm just going to mix it up myself. Well, Eli Lilly is going out and they have issued multiple lawsuits towards these peptide makers and all the medical clinics that are also mixing up their own concoctions with these research grade peptides. So each piece, what's important to understand is each piece of this like amino acid, fatty acid chain, right? And it's going to be like, you're going to see like a whole bunch of letters and a whole bunch of lines, and it's just this big long chain, right? You have to know how the entire thing is going to act once it enters the body, and how the entire thing is going to be if it has a temperature change. Stability, okay? If it has a half-life, if it has an expiration date, okay? If you mix in a B12 with it, if you mix in an L-carnitine with it, what part of that giant fatty acid amino acid chain could potentially get broken or become something different than what it should be, okay? That is what the 50-page document from Novo Nordisk is presenting to the FDA. The FDA will respond directly to Novo Nordisk with what their decision is. If they approve this, then semaglutide cannot be compounded even if it appears on the shortage list. So hats off. I tip my hat off to you at Novo Nordisk, because you basically found the loophole of how you stop compounding without even having to submit to remove yourself from the shortage list. I think whoever that was and came up with that is absolutely genius, and you should give them a raise immediately. I will say this, I myself was even a little surprised because they did actually put down every single ingredient in their drugs, which I believe the majority of these ingredients in the API and what you call a BOM material, bill of material, have previously in every other thing submitted to the FDA been like blackened out or lined out. And that was specifically due to, they did not want the compounders to be able to, basically reiterate the exact same thing. Now, of course, if I say, oh, hey, for me to make my chicken noodle soup, I just use chicken and noodles and bone broth. And I also use some of this spice and this spice and this spice. And then I also add in a secret ingredient like that. That doesn't mean that somebody else is going to be able to go and recreate the exact same thing that I do, because they don't know the quantities and they don't know what type of what I call a strip down process and then a build back up process or a balancing process I'm using. And I'm talking about that within manufacturing. Only the people who are in the manufacturing suites or the people who are in, like what my husband does, quality control, who test each individual step to make sure that that step did in fact produce what it was supposed to produce, are the ones who would know exactly what those amounts are. Or if they have someone who is like me, who manages all of their, what they call their master list, which is their master materials list. Typically, whoever owns your master materials list is also building your bomb and non-bomb items, or what you call your recipe within the system, or your batch records within the system. Those are really the only people who are going to be able to figure out exactly what the recipe is to be able to make these things. And I would be willing to say that they all have an NDA agreement. If they don't, then it's probably in their best interest to get them with an NDA agreement. I know that these were things that I definitely was never allowed to share when I previously worked in this industry. So this is kind of like the big hoopla this week. You've got Eli Lilly turning around, continuing to sue people. They're really going after like the research peptide people now, as well as med spas, as well as compounders. We're still waiting on the FDA to basically just come back and say, hey, no, like we're well within what the law is and what the guidelines are with this. But out of a courtesy, we'll do like they did in Australia and say, hey, November 30th is going to be the date that you can no longer do this. That's what I look for to happen. Then I also look for a lot of kicking and stomping and screaming compounders to start trying to like drum up a lawsuit again, just basically trying to make a name for themselves at this point, and being able to take the money from those facilities who have made billions of dollars at this point, just doing something that they really were only supposed to do a very short term and only do in not inordinate amounts, which they definitely were. I personally would love to know how much money the compounders are making. I know that our Congress is also basically challenging Eli Lilly as well as Pfizer at this point for setting up the Eli Lilly Direct and the Pfizer Direct systems, which I feel that all of them should do to bypass PBMs, to bypass insurance companies, and to help lower the costs for Americans. And when I see things like this, and Bernie Sanders is like behind this, basically saying, oh, these providers are taking kickbacks in order to prescribe all these, Zepbound prescriptions directly to Eli Lilly if they're on Eli Lilly's payroll, right? And while I do get that, because when Eli Lilly Direct first started, my husband and I both sat there going, well, that's not gonna go over well. They can't do that. You can't have a provider that basically just, is kicking out patients left and right directly to you. That goes against a lot of things. However, you have Congress challenging this method, at the same time coming across and saying you need to come up with a way to get it cheaper to individuals and patients. So they came up with a way to do it, and now Congress is like slapping their hands saying, no, you're not going to be able to do it that way. And so this to me is just another example of how much of a stronghold PBMs and insurance companies have over our government, especially the government officials who are supposed to be there representing the people. In reality, you should be trying to figure out some type of system where, okay, you're looking and monitoring to make sure that the doctor is not sending every single patient who really shouldn't be on the drug, kind of like they're doing for the compounds. In reality, there's a whole lot of people on compounds that should never have been on this drug, and they're just getting it through providers who are getting a kickback. Yeah, they're getting kickbacks. They're getting paid. They're getting paid per prescription that they're sending to these compounding pharmacies. But because the compounding pharmacies are regulated by the state, and because this is not a regulated drug that they are prescribing, then there is no penalties, really. I mean, unless the government were to really look into it. But it's like, how are you going to go after the people who have the legit, regulated, followed all your rules, did all your research rules, but you're not going to go after the people who are literally just sending out drugs left and right that shouldn't be sending out drugs left and right, who are getting it through every virtual provider that will just write it for them? It makes absolutely no damn sense. So I have kind of changed my opinion here around Bernie Sanders and that whole like congressional crew that just, I feel like they don't know what they're doing. And I feel like the goal that a lot of them have in their mind is that they want everything to just be under government control. And everybody has to get at whatever the government allows you to get. And that keeps the money in the government's hands because they're getting the kickback, right? The PBM and the insurance company and the compounding pharmacy is not getting the kickback, and the manufacturer's not profiting from it. The government would be profiting from it. And I think that is a huge mistake, because if you think in your mind about anything when it comes to government, how difficult it is to try to like work the system or get a response or get an answer or find someone who actually knows what the heck they're talking about, I mean, you might as well just go lick the bottom of somebody's shoe. I mean, it's just, so I don't have a whole lot of trust in that. My faith in the FDA has wavered slightly because I feel like grow a damn backbone, stand by your like restrictions and your laws and your guidelines that you have, and just say, okay, you know what, fine, we'll give you guys a 2-week or a month-long courtesy date to know that that's when you have to stop now. It's not even required, but we'll do it for you guys. I feel like the government needs to sit there and say, hey, we're either going to get these prices down for the people and get them a regulated drug, or we're going to go hound people about like, how are your doctors sending this to you? Nothing really makes a whole lot of sense right now. And I said that I was excited to see how all of this plays out. I still am excited to see how all of this plays out. I am still extremely hopeful that everyone is going to get a better price on a regulated drug, whether it be the name brand or it is indeed a generic, because what I realistically could see happening would be that the government contracts a generic manufacturer who's going to make generic versions of these drugs that would then be at a much lower cost to Americans. Then Americans basically decide whether or not they want to go through this generic manufacturer with the government, or if they want to still pay the name brand $3.99 or whatever it happens to be at this point. Again, 2025 has so many different drugs coming out. I would love to hear down in the comments below if you've already seen your benefits for the open enrollment season, and if the drugs are still going to be offered to you. I keep hounding my husband to hound the people in New York to get us that so that I can look at it myself. Because basically, I believe the pen cost of anything over 5, I think, is $650 now with a savings card. And so that will be $650 a month that I will have to start spitting out myself if they aren't covering it. So I'm trying to budget for that. In reality, I save a lot of money on groceries now. I was spending a redonkulous amount on groceries for this household, and now I often forget to buy groceries for the household because I'm not craving anything. I'm not really wanting anything. And so I basically just have to remember to buy the basics that my kids and my husband always want. And protein shakes. I mean, I need to buy some stock in protein shakes at this point, don't I? All right, that is all I'm going to do for today. Thank you all for watching. If you guys have anything else you would like for me to talk about, please drop that in a comment down below. I am more than happy to talk about anything that you guys want me to. I'm still going to keep working. I'll give you guys an update next week, either next week or the week after that, of whether or not I'm going to stay on the 7.5 or if I'm going to move up to the 10 per what my Weight Watchers Clinic doctor is wanting me to do at this time. When I really looked at the full scale of everything, yeah, the 4 pounds this week has basically made the month a wash. And so that's not really great. However, I do understand that your weight can fluctuate during constipation, your weight can fluctuate during another medicine, and your weight can fluctuate during that time of the month as well. And I'm kind of hitting all of those things at once right now. And so it would not surprise me even in the least bit if next week I were to weigh myself and then suddenly I'm, down 2 pounds from last week, which would be 6 pounds down from right now. Your weight can actually fluctuate quite a lot based on water intake. I believe the human body can hold, I believe it's women typically have about 15 pounds just in their digestive system at any given time. So you have to take all those things into consideration. So I'm not real upset this week just because I know that there's a lot going on and I've been running around like crazy, running to the school and back and trying to plan parties and taking painted pumpkins and running to field trips. And so I've been a little stressed out this week as well, just kind of going. We'll see how it goes. You guys can always follow me over on Instagram at KetosisMom or at Living Large and Lily. You can also find me on Like to Know It at Living Large and Lily as well, so if you're shopping this season. And you can also find me on Amazon. I am an Amazon creator at amazon.com/shop/KetosisMom. Bye, y'all.